This ceremony is important since our last ship deployment to RIMPAC dates back to 2022. As such, our return to this multinational activity highlights our commitment to becoming a credible partner under our Sail Plan 2040 vision.
On June 4, 2026, a warship left Subic Bay. It sailed out into the Pacific, heading toward Hawaii. On the surface, that sounds ordinary. Ships depart ports all the time. Sailors train. Exercises come and go. But this departure was anything but ordinary. The ship is the BRP Miguel Malvar, the Philippines' newest and most powerful guided missile frigate. It cost 12.5 billion Philippine pesos, roughly 250 million US dollars. It was built by Hyundai Heavy Industries in South Korea and commissioned into service only in May 2025. It is armed with advanced anti-ship and anti-submarine weapons, carries an AW-159 Wildcat helicopter, and travels at 25 knots. It has a crew of 120 sailors. It is the finest warship the Philippines has ever deployed abroad. And it is sailing to RIMPAC, the Rim of the Pacific exercise, the largest international naval exercise in the world. The Philippine Navy is set to participate in the 30th iteration of RIMPAC, which will run from June 24 to July 21, 2026, in and around the Hawaiian Islands. Spokesperson Capt. Marissa Martinez. But here is the detail that makes this story remarkable. The ship left from Subic Bay. That name means something. For decades during the Cold War, Subic Bay was home to the largest American naval base in Asia. Thousands of US sailors passed through it. Aircraft carriers anchored there. It was a strategic hub that anchored American power in the Pacific. Then in 1992, the Philippine Senate voted to close the base. American forces packed up and left. For many Filipinos, that moment felt like true independence. Few people at the time would have imagined that just over 3 decades later, a Philippine warship would leave from that same harbor to join a US-led coalition of 31 nations, 40 surface ships, 5 submarines, 140 aircraft, and over 25,000 military personnel. Yet here we are. So what changed? And why does it matter so much?
From the US Coast Guard, sila po yung ating principal na partner doon, yung US Coast Guard. We will be doing exercises or drills on search and rescue, on information exchange, public affairs, other humanitarian assistance activities.
Most people hear the word exercise and think photo opportunity. A few ships sail side by side, officials shake hands, then everyone goes home. That is not what RIMPAC is. RIMPAC is the Indo-Pacific's most important coalition warfare training event. Every 2 years, the United States Navy hosts it around Hawaii. Nations bring their warships, submarines, aircraft, and command staffs. They spend weeks learning how to fight together. The theme for RIMPAC 2026 tells you everything, partners. Integrated and prepared. Think about what that actually requires. Imagine a crisis erupting somewhere in the South China Sea tomorrow. American destroyers arrive. Japanese naval forces deploy. Australian aircraft join the operation. Philippine ships move into position. Now what? How do they talk to each other? Whose frequencies do they use? How do they share targeting data? Who commands what? How do they refuel at sea? How does a Philippine officer give a status update to an American admiral? None of that can be figured out in the middle of a crisis. It must be practiced beforehand, year after year, until it becomes second nature. That is what RIMPAC does. Military planners call it interoperability. It is one of the most important words in modern warfare. A coalition is only as powerful as its ability to operate as one unit. History proves it. During World War II, the Allies spent enormous effort just coordinating operations between different militaries. Getting communication right was often the difference between victory and disaster. Today, warfare is even more complex. Satellites provide intelligence. Drones track movements. Warships launch missiles from hundreds of kilometers away. A single operation can involve forces from 5 different countries using 5 different systems. Without practice, it all falls apart. For the Philippines, RIMPAC delivers something that cannot be bought at a defense expo. It delivers experience. It delivers relationships. And it delivers credibility.
Next day in Washington, a first step is taken in the direction demanded by Dewey as the United States and the Philippines sign a mutual defense treaty.
For a long time, the Philippines had one main security relationship: the United States. That made sense. A mutual defense treaty dating to 1951 had kept the alliance alive for over 70 years. Washington and Manila trained together, exchanged intelligence, and worked through political disagreements across many administrations. But something has changed. Manila is no longer strengthening a single alliance. It is building a network. The difference matters enormously. In a traditional alliance, security depends on one relationship. If that relationship weakens, everything weakens. In a network, security is reinforced from multiple directions at once. It is harder to isolate, harder to pressure, harder to break. Look at what has been built in just the last few years. The U.S. Congress authorized up to $2.5 billion in foreign military financing for the Philippines under the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act. The U.S. is also investing an additional $144 million in infrastructure under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, which gives American forces access to 9 strategic locations across the Philippines. Since 2024, the Philippines and the United States have participated in more than 500 military exercises and exchanges. Japan has become a major partner. The two countries signed a reciprocal access agreement, one of the most significant security developments in Southeast Asia in recent years, allowing each country's military to operate from the other's territory. Australia signed a strategic partnership agreement with Manila in 2023. It is now the Philippines' biggest defense partner after the United States. South Korea has become the primary supplier of Philippine naval hardware. The BRP Miguel Malvar itself was built there. The Philippines has approved a multi-year $35 billion modernization program, with South Korean defense industries playing a central role. European navies, French, British, and others are increasingly conducting patrols and exercises in the Indo-Pacific. Each partnership alone does not change everything, but together they create something much larger. Think of it like a web. Every new thread strengthens the entire structure. When one part is under pressure, the rest holds. This is what military planners call a force multiplier. The network becomes worth more than the sum of its parts. Here is something that often gets missed in coverage about the Philippines. Pick up a map, find the northernmost islands of the Philippines, Batanes Province. Now look north. Taiwan is less than 200 kilometers away. Between them sits the Luzon Strait, and within it, the Bashi Channel. This narrow waterway connects the South China Sea to the Pacific Ocean. It is one of the most important maritime corridors on the planet. Every major navy in the region watches it closely. For the Philippines, this is not an abstract concern. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has been direct about it. His argument is simple. Any major crisis involving Taiwan would immediately affect the Philippines. Not because Manila chooses it, but because geography makes neutrality almost impossible. Airspace would be affected. Sea lanes would be disrupted. Trade would be interrupted. And there are roughly 150,000 Filipinos living and working in Taiwan. A conflict would create an immediate humanitarian emergency. This is why the Philippines has been quietly but steadily paying more attention to its northern approaches. Military exercises increasingly include Batanes and the Luzon Strait. Infrastructure in the area is being upgraded. Defense planners speak more openly about the strategic importance of the region. And all of this connects back to RIMPAC. The same partners who are helping the Philippines in the South China Sea, the United States, Japan, Australia, are also the countries most concerned about Taiwan. Their interests overlap. Their exercises now reflect that overlap.
We will also be joined by, for the very first time, by the Philippine Coast Guard. They will be sending their BRP Gabriela Silang.
When a Philippine officer trains alongside a Japanese counterpart during RIMPAC, they are not just building skills for the South China Sea. They are building familiarity for any scenario that might unfold in this corner of the world. Geography has forced the Philippines into the center of the Indo-Pacific's most sensitive security challenges. Manila did not choose this, but it is adapting to it. There is a concept that keeps coming up in conversations between military planners across the Indo-Pacific. It is called the kill web. It sounds technical, but the idea is actually simple. Old warfare was linear. A commander issued an order. It went down a chain. Soldiers carried it out. Information moved slowly and in one direction. Modern warfare is different. A drone spots a target in the South China Sea. That information instantly reaches a warship 300 kilometers away, an aircraft overhead, a command center onshore, and an allied headquarters in another country, all at the same time. The system can respond in minutes. The side that connects information fastest often wins. This is why exercises like RIMPAC have become so critical. You cannot plug into a kill web during a crisis if you have never practiced connecting to it beforehand. The cables, the frequencies, the protocols, the trust, all of it must be built in advance. For the Philippines, this is not optional. The country sits directly along the maritime routes that any conflict in the South China Sea or near Taiwan would affect. Being able to plug into a coalition system to share intelligence, receive early warnings, coordinate responses is now a core part of Philippine defense strategy. The deployment of the BRP Miguel Malvar with its AW-159 Wildcat helicopter is a perfect example. The Wildcat is a sophisticated anti-submarine warfare platform. It can detect submarines, track them, and share that data across a network. At RIMPAC, Philippine crews will practice exactly that, integrating their sensors and systems into a larger coalition web. That is the real value of the exercise. Not the show of force, not the photos, the invisible wiring that connects militaries together. Let us come back to Subic Bay for a moment. In 1992, the Philippine Senate voted 12-11 to reject extending the U.S. bases agreement. It was one of the closest votes in Philippine history. American forces left. The base closed. At that moment, the Cold War had just ended. China had not yet built artificial islands in the South China Sea. There were no water cannons aimed at Philippine fishing boats, no confrontations at Second Thomas Shoal, no satellite images of Chinese Coast Guard ships blocking resupply missions. The world looked different. Today, an estimated $3 trillion in trade passes through the South China Sea every year. China has ignored a 2016 International Tribunal ruling that invalidated its claims in the region. Chinese Coast Guard vessels now regularly operate around disputed features. Confrontations have become routine. The Philippines has reached a straightforward conclusion: it cannot protect its maritime interests alone. That conclusion is driving everything: the $35 billion modernization program, the 500-plus military exercises with the United States since 2024, the reciprocal access agreement with Japan, the partnership with Australia, and now the deployment of the country's finest warship to the world's biggest naval exercise, departing from the same port where American forces once stood guard. History does not repeat itself, but it rhymes. The Philippines is not going back to the Cold War arrangement. It is doing something new. It is becoming an active participant in a regional security network, one built on many partners, not just one. When BRP Miguel Malvar returns from RIMPAC in late July, you will not see headlines about what it brought back. Because what it brings back cannot be photographed. It brings back doctrine.
Our return to this multinational activity highlights our commitment to becoming a credible partner. We likewise strengthen maritime cooperation with partner nations and navies in order to continue advancing a free and open Indo-Pacific.
Philippine officers will have spent weeks watching how American carrier groups operate, how Japanese naval planners think, how Australian commanders make decisions under pressure. These are lessons that take years to develop independently. RIMPAC compresses that education. It brings back relationships. A Philippine commander who has spent 3 weeks working alongside an American admiral, a Japanese captain, and an Australian officer now has 3 direct contacts he can call during a crisis. That personal network is worth more than any formal agreement on paper. It brings back credibility. Partners pay attention to who shows up. Every year the Philippines participates in RIMPAC, it signals something to the region. Manila is serious. It is investing. It intends to be part of this security architecture, not just a spectator. And it brings back deterrence. Deterrence is often misunderstood. People think it means threatening someone. In reality, deterrence is about reducing uncertainty. The more connected and capable the Philippines becomes, the more its partnerships are visible and operational, the harder it becomes for any actor to assume that pressuring the Philippines is risk-free. One more detail from this year's RIMPAC deserves attention. For the first time, the Philippine Coast Guard is also participating, deploying the BRP Gabriela Silang. This is significant. Coast Guard vessels are the first line of response in the South China Sea confrontations. Their presence at RIMPAC means the Philippines is integrating not just its Navy, but its full maritime security apparatus into the coalition network. Here is the simplest way to understand what is happening. For most of its modern history, the Philippines was at the edge of regional security. It was a treaty ally of the United States, but it often tried to stay neutral, to balance, to keep options open. That era is ending. The Philippines is moving toward the center. It is not doing this because it wants war. It is doing this because the sea around it has become more contested, more dangerous, and more critical to its economic survival every year.
We had meaningful exchanges on regional and global issues, including challenges that are now emerging in the Indo-Pacific region, and of course the developments in the Middle East and their impact on energy security.
Under President Marcos Jr., Manila has made a clear strategic choice. Build partnerships, modernize capabilities, integrate into the coalition, make deterrence real. The numbers tell the story. More than 500 military exercises with the U.S. since 2024, a $35 billion modernization program, a new reciprocal access agreement with Japan, a strategic partnership with Australia, congressional approval for $2.5 billion in U.S. military financing for the Philippines. And now, for the 30th time, a Philippine warship at RIMPAC, more capable than any that came before it. The transformation is not complete. The Philippines still faces funding constraints, regional pressures, and difficult diplomatic balancing acts. Modernization takes time. Partnerships require constant maintenance. But the direction is clear. The ship sailing from Subic Bay on June 4, 2026 is not just a warship heading to an exercise. It is a signal that the Philippines has made its choice. A signal that Manila intends to help shape the future of the Indo-Pacific, not just react to it. and a signal that in the waters of the Pacific, a different Philippines is emerging. One that is more connected, more capable, and more determined than at any point in its modern history.